Hey folks, today I'm in Colrain, Massachusetts. And have you ever seen a street like this and wondered, is it just an arbitrary name for a street or does it have some meaning behind it? Fort Lucas Road refers to the site of an old fort that was built in 1745. People drive by this road every day and probably have no idea the historical significance of this place. So let's take a closer look at Fort Lucas. Today this area is a snowmobile trail in the wintertime. So after a short walk you come upon this spot right off the snowmobile trail where there's a stone marker. It says, "This stone covers the well of Fort Lucas, French and Indian Wars, 1744-1763. There's the well stone over there, and right next to it is this, looks like a concrete, maybe it's a catch basin for rainwater for animals to drink. I'm not sure. If anyone knows, please let me know, but it certainly would post-date when the fort was here. So we're at the site of Fort Lucas here. What do we know about this place? It turns out really not a whole lot. It was built in 1745 by someone named Andrew Lucas, and it was built as a palisaded garrison house, which means that it had wooden stakes driven around the entire perimeter as defense, and a house inside that housed soldiers. Now back then, the soldiers were actually put up by residents of Colrain back then, so it couldn't have been a great situation to be out here. It couldn't have been very developed. I mean, we're talking 272 years ago. Now, the fort, as it was originally conceived, was in operation from 1745 to 1748, when it was abandoned. Now, this was used during a conflict called King George's War, with the French and Indians on one side and the Massachusetts Bay colonists and the English on the other side. This was a particularly bloody conflict for the Massachusetts Bay colonists. It's estimated that 8% of the adult male population died during that war. And then after that, the fort was abandoned. Now, it only stayed abandoned until 1754, when the French and Indian War started. Now, that conflict lasted until 1763. It was a particularly significant war in our nation's history because as a result of the French defeat, the French were driven out of North America, at least east of the Mississippi. They had to cede all of Canada, what we know as the United States now, parts of Louisiana. All that went to British control. And of course, it was only a few years after that the Americans rebelled and had the War for Independence. So this is a site that's pretty historically significant. I don't think there were any major battles here. But Colrain itself was about 1,000 feet above sea level, so it offered a good vantage point from the surrounding areas. In fact, Colrain had 4 such forts around. There was Fort Morris, Fort Morrison, Fort McDowell, and then here, Fort Lucas. I believe this is the only one that really has any kind of public access where you can see anything or any ruins. Now, judging by the site of this, no one has really been out here in a long time. The snowmobilers pass it, the cars pass it, people live nearby, but there's been nothing done to preserve this, what I think is a kind of interesting historical relic. In fact, it's really kind of fallen back into the woods and is abandoned. So we can take a look at what 250 years or so of abandonment have meant, but also maybe we can dig out some clues to the past and see maybe a footprint of what this fort looked like. So let's take a closer look now. So we're here at the footprint of the fort right now, and it's really difficult at first to see very much. What I observed right away was just how dense and overgrown the whole area is. It's just filled with pricker bushes, brambles, fallen trees that have been dead for a long time. The bottom is filled up with some water. There's still snow here. It's a really rough area. Now, if we were here in the summertime, I bet this woods would be so dense that you really wouldn't be able to see anything. But if we look pretty closely down over here, we can start to see some rocks that must have been part of the foundation. So we're going to take a walk around and see if we can get a closer look. Ow! Here's what I think is probably the best view, where you can actually see the foundation of the fort. Those rocks were laid over 270 years ago, and they still look pretty strong. Here's a decent view looking east where you can see the wall. It stands probably about 10 feet high that runs all the way down the length. Here's a view of the south wall of the fort. It's the one that's the most intact. Doesn't get too much sun over on this side, you can see by all the moss. That's the west wall over there. Now that corner with which is the northwest corner is really all in ruins basically. Not too much left. And there's water here on the ground. But you can see the techniques these builders used. I mean, there's no kind of cement or anything in here. It's just field stones that were found on the property that were just laid on top of each other to build the foundation for the fort. Here's another view of the south wall and just how overgrown everything else is. Now this is the west wall of the fort. Whatever rocks had been stacked here has just really been kind of pushed away from the earth. Now we're looking at the north wall, which is pretty much gone. There's just basically the size of a stone wall. So that may have been an entrance point at some point. Maybe that's how people access the fort, it's through this north wall. Here I'm on the north side. This will give you an idea how rough it is here. Just the prickers just destroyed my jacket, basically. Jesus. So this is Fort Lucas in Colrain, Massachusetts. It's really kind of a shame to see it all overgrown and unmaintained like this, so people can't see it and think about the role that this had in our nation's history. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And we'll see you on the next adventure. Got a little bonus footage for you. As I was exploring around Fort Lucas, I found this old cellar hole right within eyeshot of it. Built with the same type of construction. I have no idea how old it is, but you can tell by the size of that two large trees that are growing here. It's been abandoned for probably at least 100 years. I thought this was interesting. There's a pipe that runs out of the cellar hole and there's water coming out of it, so I don't know if it was tapped into some kind of an old well. The water's definitely run this time of the year because of the snow melting. The pipe is leading in this area here where there's a hole, and it looks like this might have been a well. You know, I see some rocks around it, so it's probably where the water's coming from. It's a well that fed that house. Over here you can see some type of a stone or concrete foundation as well. There's ruins scattered all over the area too. There's a fireplace there where those white bricks are. So this was somebody's homestead maybe 150 years ago. Also abandoned, left into ruins, disappearing into the forest. All right, catch you next time.